Hi everybody. So this digital storytelling activity is going to be about my first season coaching modified track and field. So actually last spring, 2019 is when I coached for the first time at the modified level, and I coached both boys and girls modified. I primarily was the distance coach, as I had the most experience doing distance, while the other coaches that I was working with, one was a sprinting coach and then the other one was a throwing coach. So the first thing about track and field that's important to know is that you're practicing pretty much no matter what the weather is. Especially springtime, like it's very unpredictable what the weather is going to be. So this bottom picture on this slide, that was pretty much how most of our practices went for a majority of the season, at least until we were about halfway through. Um, and then once we got over that halfway mark, it started to be nicer weather, and at that point, we were practicing in very very warm, very hot weather, which I was fine with. I personally enjoy the heat, but many of the kids that I was coaching weren't too happy with that. So being a modified coach, this is a lot of the students' first experience with track. So the one of the primary focuses of coaching them was just introducing them to various events in track and field. So a lot of them were interested in jumping or sprinting or distance running. So coming into the season, they had an idea of what they wanted to do, which is great. But we did encourage them to try a different event that they were unfamiliar with. So every student was allowed to compete in 3 events per meet. So 2 of them they could pick themselves, and then one of the events they had to do what we as the coaches chose for them to do, which was very interesting because there were definitely some athletes that were not happy with this. But I mean, being a coach and a previous track athlete, I could kind of gauge what athletes would be good at which events. So one girl in particular, I had her try mid-distance running, and she was not happy about this. She wanted to be a sprinter, but I was like, no, I really think you can be a great mid-distance runner. Why don't you try running the 800? And I made her run it every meet for the every meet for the rest of the season, and she actually did very well with it. And actually, by the end of the season, she was like, "Oh, yeah, coach, you were right. I do like this." So it's nice to see that progress coaching them throughout the season. And then while we have that progress, we have a lot of athletes that don't want to put any effort in, which I thought this image at the bottom was perfect. Running is impossible. Surprisingly, a lot of the athletes that we had, they didn't want to run. And I would have to nicely ask them, if you didn't want to run, then why did you sign up for track? Um, which, I mean, can sound a little rude, but I mean, you're signing up for track, you know you're going to be running. So that was a struggle that all of us coaches had to deal with. And I liked this quote because a lot of the student athletes, had to learn to realize this is going to be difficult. I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. This is the most I've ever done in my life. And a lot of them weren't used to that. This was the first sport they've ever done, or any physical activity for that matter, where they're showing up every day to practice and they're competing. And this quote is by a man named Fred DeVito, who actually designed a fitness program. So it is important for students to realize everything is going to be a challenge, not even in just this track season, but across like life in general. Everything is challenging. And if it wasn't that way, then life would be boring and nothing would change. So definitely, overall, we did end up having a great season. There were a few bumps in the road, but overall, everybody improved. Um, we had a couple students who were like, oh my God, I don't know why I did this. I'm never doing this again, which is fine. You get that in every sport. And then we had majority of the student athletes that excelled and loved it. And we actually had this one kid that was running the 400, and he was running better than some high schoolers in the area, which is phenomenal. And he's on varsity this year, thriving. So it's great to see that these athletes are excelling and just doing really well. And as my first season coaching, it was a great time. I actually went on to coach cross country that same year, and then we're getting ready to start up another outdoor track season in a couple of weeks, and I'm very excited. And it's a great experience, and it helps me grow as a person, and I love being a positive role model and impact on the students and, well, the student athletes as well. And we can all learn a lot from each other, and it is a great time. And yeah, I recommend, if you ever get the chance to coach, definitely give it a shot.